Hello everyone, my name is Chris and welcome back to The Casual Gamer. It's been a while since I've managed to sit down and make a video, but I'm glad to get this one out, and oh boy, where to begin with Assassin's Creed Mirage? Let me just start by saying I've been a fan of Assassin's Creed since Brotherhood, and have played most titles since. I love this franchise, and I want it to succeed, and I think Mirage is a very small step in the right direction as the series seems to finally be focusing back on actual assassins and some of that old gameplay that people love from the game's pre-Origins. However, I think Mirage has some big issues that, like its recent predecessors, has made it difficult for me to even try and finish the game. And in fact, I have not finished it, and to be honest, I don't think I intend to. But we'll talk about that. Now, as I have not finished the game, this is not a review, but rather my impressions of what I've played, which is roughly 8 hours. So let's start this off with just what the game is about and some of the basic gameplay features, while I go into a little more of what I like and dislike about the game. Now, in Assassin's Creed Mirage, you take control of the character Basim, who you may be familiar with in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. This takes place before those events and is the beginning of Basim's story, which, by the way, on a side note, I apologize if I mispronounce these names. I'm not very good with name pronunciation. But Basim begins his journey in Baghdad, which is where the setting of the story takes place. And he starts basically as a common thief who is seemingly completing tasks for the Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, even though I know in this I think they're still called the Hidden Ones, but they'll always be the Brotherhood, right? So Basim ends up getting tired of doing these small chores that he's been doing, and he wants a bigger part. Well, to avoid spoilers, he ends up acting on his own with his friend Nahal, and let's just say that they end up causing the death of an important figure, which sets him on this journey of actually joining the Brotherhood, or again, the Hidden Ones. Afterwards, he sets out to track down these masked figures, you know, those secret order, if you will. And if you've played the previous games, it's the same thing. You know, you find clues through missions to find the big bad guys and, well, assassinate them. And there's really no change here. Basim has some, inner demons he fights along the way, but the story is what you would imagine it would be. And from what I played, I did not particularly care for this story, even though I don't think Basim is necessarily a bad character or anything like that, but he's no Ezio or Edward either. Now, one thing I did really like about what I played is the return to form, kind of. I say that loosely, of the older style of Assassin's Creed. It's nice to actually be playing an assassin and having the Brotherhood very prominent in the game. Baghdad is designed fairly well, with a lot of rooftops to parkour across and lots of people on the streets. It's nice to blend in with the crowds and sit on benches and kind of some of the older stuff that's in the previous games, you know what I mean? It's much better than the large area of open fields like Valhalla, that you're just riding on horses from place to place and not really being able to go through cities like you would want. And it's nice to be able to do that here for the most part. Now, the parkour is fine, but it's not great, however. You often don't move where you intend to go, and it can be very frustrating to want to move around because of it. And I know this has been an Assassin's Creed problem for a long time. I remember playing Unity and thinking that the parkour was absolutely outstanding, and thought that the next games would just be better and better and expand upon those systems, but they never did. And I understand this game started out as an expansion for Valhalla and kind of became its own thing. So I get there's a lot of Valhalla-like mechanical stuff in it. And I'm not judging this game too harshly, because I get that it's a smaller title and not a full-blown next game, but they've created new mechanics for it. I get that this is still kind of based off of the previous game's mechanics, Now, from what I played, in between doing the main missions, you can complete assassin contracts for additional rewards and items and skill points. These missions are pretty simple, and usually you just have to save somebody or assassinate someone, escort someone, or, complete some, pretty simple objective. There are collectibles around the map and chests that contain additional gear. Gear kind of works the same as Valhalla, but a little more simplified. You can collect outfits which have special effects, along with swords and daggers, which you can upgrade to further enhance their damage. So, and simple stuff like that. There's nothing too crazy, though there are some abilities that are pretty cool, which leads me to a side note that, there is still a shop in this game. That is still there. You can still pay for additional skins, and some of these skins have, effects that are kind of cool, and it's a shame that you have to go and buy some of these skins rather than finding them in the game. But it is what it is there. I hate it. I wish the shop wasn't in these games. I wish you couldn't buy skins in these games as a single player RPG, that you could just go and find these in the world, but that's a topic for another time. There is a notoriety system that you can build if you were seen stealing or killing. And one thing I found weird, it not so much weird, but it was a little different, that you have to collect these special tokens to give to, the people who will help bring down your notoriety, instead of just paying them with money. You use these little tokens, and you have tokens as well for merchants, like a different type of token that you can use on merchants and open secret chests, like special chests, I should say. And you kind of collect these tokens to use for opportunities during certain objectives, to infiltrate places or cause distractions. So you end up collecting these tokens, which in the early game is a bit rough, very, very early, where you don't have the tokens, but later on when you get a ton, it's not so bad. But early game, it's a little weird that sometimes you have these opportunities, but you can't do anything because you don't have this token to give them so that they'll actually cause the distraction you want. So it's a little bit different, but it's not anything too crazy. And there are still simple things that you can do without having tokens. There's still wanted posters around the map that you can tear down to lower your notoriety segment down by 1 rather than 2. So that stuff's still there as well. Now, let's touch on a little bit of the combat. Now, combat in this game, in my opinion, is not that great. And anytime I had to fight, I hated it. I hated actually getting into combat in this game. Playing some of the older games like Assassin's Creed 3 or Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, I actually liked just, you'd watch like a battalion of soldiers move and you would just go and fight them, because it was fun to actually engage in the combat and see the cool animations play out. And in this game, you don't really get that. If there was a group of people, I never fought them. I didn't want to fight them because I didn't feel like the combat really offered that much or was designed in a way that made it feel fun. And the game actually makes a point that Basim is not a great fighter, and you definitely feel that when you're playing in combat. It's like the game doesn't really want you to be in combat per se, and it's kind of a little bit punishing when you get caught, that you have to end up fighting. And in the combat, you basically have a light attack and a heavy attack. You can parry and dodge, like really simple stuff, but you don't have a ton of skill. It's a very simplified version of Valhalla, so to speak. So you can throw knives and do little things like that, but it doesn't feel all that special. And you're just swinging a sword around. Not every attack has an animation. Other than when you successfully parry, you actually have a chance to insta-kill an enemy, and it will play an animation that is pretty cool. But other than that, you don't really have a lot of fun with it. At least I didn't. And I ended up just, for the most part, just waiting to parry so I could get those cool animations and feel like your character is doing something or fighting in a way that feels like an assassin. Feels like an elite person rather than just some basic guy swinging a sword around. And there were times that, when I would get caught out of stealth and had to fight, sometimes I would just rather reload the game and just play the previous checkpoint and try it again, because I didn't want to sit there and fight everybody. And enemies have health bars, so you have to hack away at them to defeat them. Like I said, unless you parry them and are able to insta-kill them. And sometimes you have these bigger enemies that pop up that, yeah, you can upgrade certain, your knives to do damage to them, but for the most part, as a basic attack, you kind of have to just get around them to hit them from behind, which sometimes these enemies are placed in areas where it's really hard to do that with this limited space that you have, which makes that kind of frustrating. But all in all, the combat is, like I said, it's not great, but it's not awful either. I just didn't think it was that fun. and I just preferred to be in stealth. And even though I preferred to be in stealth, I don't think the stealth was that great either. I do not understand why to this day Ubisoft is not making the best stealth games of all time with this series. The stealth of this game is pretty bare bones. It feels like, you know, a lot of the same mechanics are there. You know, you have a bird, you tag enemies while you use bushes and cover to pick off enemies and all that stuff, which is fine. You know, I don't really have problems with that. I mean, that's been like that for a while. And it is cool that they added some enemies that can disable your bird, so you have to go through areas the old-fashioned way, you know, at least until you take the enemy out. But for the most part, it's pretty much the same. Insta-kills are here by default, thank God. It's very nice to be able to kill an enemy you want by assassinating them and not have some health bar that, oh, you got in a good position, but you're only going to do 20% damage to them, and now you've alerted everybody. It's nice that they've given that back by default to just be able to assassinate enemies, which they should have all the time. And you have tools like knives and a blowpipe and traps and other tools to help you, which to be honest is actually kind of fun throwing the knives at everybody because they just insta-killed people, and the AI is pretty dumb, so they don't really search for you that hard, and you don't really, you know, if you had two guys standing next together, you can pretty quickly just in rapid succession throw these knives at them without really alerting too many people, you know. So I ended up using that. That was probably the tool I used the most. Which, yeah, the AI is still, I don't know, they're fine, but they are still pretty dumb, and they don't really try to search for you or do anything really interesting. Like, it would be cool to see enemies adapt to knowing that somebody is there or that somebody just killed somebody. So now you see that they're approaching things differently. Maybe they're positioning themselves differently. They're doing things differently to try and counter what you're doing. Like, I remember in Metal Gear Solid 5 that enemies would actually adapt to how you kill them. You know, it's like you do enough headshots, they start wearing helmets, they start wearing different gear. So you have to adapt yourself. And it would be nice to finally see Assassin's Creed have more of that and really feel like you're having a more of a challenge and a more interesting assassination game. You know what I mean? It just would be nice to see better AI improvements and deeper stealth mechanics in the game, and not just the same thing you see over and over and over again with minor tweaks game after game after game. You know, and I don't think the stealth is bad per se. It's just, it's the same it's been for a long time, and it doesn't feel that fun. And I think my biggest pet peeve with this game is how boring assassinations are. Like, if you are perfectly aligned behind an enemy, then yeah, you'll get a nice animation, and it's a nice, cool little animation. But if you're in a weird position, or God forbid, a basket is in your way, Basm just sticks his arm out, you know, does a little stab, it just in front of him, and the enemy just falls dead, just goes limp and dies. The game doesn't try to align your characters so that you always have a cool animation. It'll do it if you're perfectly aligned, you know, but if there's anything that's off a little bit, you just do a standard attack, and it just feels really weird. You know, it just doesn't feel right. And the best example I can use is you guys remember in Shadow of Mordor or Shadow of War? And we'll use Shadow of Mordor for the most part, because that's even older than Shadow of War, right? That when you had an indicator that popped up to do a stealth attack, an animation always plays. The game won't, Talion didn't just drop down, throw his knife out in the air, and the orc just falls and dies. You know, there's always an animation, and a cool one. If the indicator pops up, you're gonna do an animation. But this game, it can't do that. It doesn't have that like auto alignment to always have something play, which I'm not a developer. I don't know how hard it is to do that, but it's just, it goes a long way if you make sure that that happens. Like, I would rather you not have an indicator pop up when it's not perfectly aligned to do an assassination than have that happen, and now you're just sticking a knife through a wall and the guy dies. You know, and it just gets really, it's a small thing, but it's an annoying thing as well, as at this point in this franchise's, you know, life cycle, to have that keep happening game after game. Another thing that bothered me is there's not really a hide behind cover system. Like, there's not like a button you can press or something you do to just go behind like some boxes or a wall to indicate to you, hey, I'm in cover, now I'm going to move left and right on this cover, and I know that I'm hidden behind this wall. Instead, he kind of just stays crouched, and a lot of times where I'm trying to move into a position so that I can assassinate the enemy and make sure Basim takes that enemy and puts him behind cover, I end up moving out of cover and either getting seen, or I'm forced to now do an animation where Basim just, again, sticks the knife out, guy drops to the floor. Now I have to pick him up, move him, which, by the way, can also be frustrating because sometimes the button inputs get all weird and it doesn't always happen the way you want it to. And so it's just a weird things like that are really simple mechanics that aren't present, that I think should be present to make the experience more fun. You know, if you're always fighting simple mechanics, you don't really get invested too deeply into the actual game itself. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of stealth mechanics and stealth stuff that is still to be desired in this franchise. And I guess the stealth is passable in this game. You know, it's not necessarily the worst thing ever, but it's not that great either, and it just didn't capture me. And I think as other games come out that have innovating gameplay and awesome mechanics, Assassin's Creed just feels like it's being left years behind, and it's just not, you know, it's like, why would I play stealth in this when I have more fun with stealth in Spider-Man? You know, which I get, it's not a fair comparison. You're talking about a superhero that can shoot webs and do this stuff, but you look at Spider-Man 2 or even the original Spider-Man, and the mechanics are fun. You know, they're interesting. It's actually fun to try and sneak around and take out enemies, versus in this, I'm just trying to get through it. You know, and I don't think that that's what they're intending, and I don't think that's what we want either, you know? But that's what I feel about that anyways. And I probably should have said this before, but I played this on PC on an RTX 4090, and I thought the game looked good. You know, it wasn't jaw-dropping in any way, and it still felt dated in a lot of ways, like the facial animations, but it's not terrible either. You know, it feels like Valhalla pretty much, which, you know, obviously makes sense from, you know, how this game came to be. But I didn't really have any frame drops, and the game ran pretty smooth for the most part. I think my favorite thing about the game, and it's kind of a graphical thing, but it's kind of just the setting itself. But Altair's outfit finally looks good. It really good, actually, and it feels at place in this game, which makes sense for the setting, and the outfit just, it feels more in place. You know, and I rocked Altair's outfit more than any other outfit in the game. So that was a small thing that I really liked, where just to see a legacy outfit actually feel like it's in place, you know, like using Altair's outfit or something in like Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered or something like that. Just, you know, the older games, just sometimes it just doesn't feel like it fits, you know, even though it's cool that it's in there. But this one it does, and I like that. I wanted to keep this somewhat short, as it's not, like I said, it's not a review, and I'm not deep diving into any mechanic. I just wanted to share some of my thoughts, and I'm not always the best at saying what I mean, but hopefully you guys kind of grasp what I was trying to get across in this video. And to me, this game is just not what I expected or what I hoped it to be. Let me rephrase that. You know, it is a game that I expected, of what I expected. You know, it's an average Ubisoft title. You know, it's not terrible, but it's not great either. And it became really hard to want to keep playing this game. And like I said in the beginning of this video, I don't think I'm going to even try to finish this game. I think I'm probably just going to wait until the next Assassin's Creed comes out and see if it captivates me. Because this one just didn't do it, you know, especially like I said, during a time with other really good game releases coming out. I find it hard to say, hey, yes, go buy Assassin's Creed Mirage instead of something like Spider-Man, you know, or even something like Lies of P. It's kind of hard to do that. I want I want Assassin's Creed to be better. You know, I want them to get creative. I like that they're kind of giving us a bit of nostalgia with this game, but they need to do more. Assassin's Creed should have the greatest stealth gameplay of any game out there and really make you feel like an assassin. You know, and I never really feel like that in an Assassin's Creed game, especially in this one. You know, it doesn't feel like in this game in particular that you're doing anything that Basim could not have done before. You know, I mean, before he was in the Brotherhood. You know what I mean? It'd be cool to see these games have mechanics, or that you're doing things to really see like, hey, your character, he joined the Brotherhood. He learned how to do all of these different things, and you can see that in the game. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not like you really have to think things through of how to complete your objective or how to defeat enemies, that you would kind of be like, oh, you know, he learned that from the Brotherhood, of this way of thinking or approaching certain things, because you don't really have a lot of opportunity. It's like, yeah, Eagle Mark stuff, you pick them off, and that's it. You know, maybe you drop a rock on him or what, you know, whatever it is. It doesn't feel like he's doing anything that he couldn't have done before. You know what I mean? So I just hope that the next real mainline game goes above and beyond and really expands upon the systems that made this franchise what it is and what people love about it. And I think if you have a Ubisoft Plus or whatever their service is called, or you can get it on sale, then it may be worth checking out if you're a fan of the series. If you're not a fan of the series, or you stopped playing these games a long time ago, to be honest, as much as I hate to say it, I don't think this game is going to win you back. I think Basim is a better character than Eivor. I'll give you that much. But I don't think this is going to be the game that you play and think that Assassin's Creed is back on top, you know. But that's just my thoughts of what I've played in Mirage, and I'm curious what you guys think about the game. You know, are you having fun with it? Did everything I say you just blatantly disagree with, which is totally fine, right? You know, I hope if you got Mirage and you're playing it and you're loving it and enjoying it, that you spent your money on something that you love, right? If that makes sense. You know, I hate for people to spend money on a game that they end up hating. So if you're really enjoying it, I'm happy for you. I'm glad you enjoy it. I'm glad that I basically got this for the price of a subscription, because I would not spend $50 on this game. But those are my thoughts, right? Let me know what you guys think, what you're having fun with, things that you didn't like, things maybe I didn't talk about that you liked or didn't like. Let me know in the comments. But that's it for me, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.